Hello everyone, class is very much in session. That's right, my name is Jack G. King from Cultaholic.com, and it's time for Graded Money in the Bank edition from Chicago, Illinois. What an eventful show. We have a lot to discuss and a lot to grade, so let's get straight into it and take a look at all of the lovely action. So let's talk very briefly about the pre-show. The Bludgeon brothers defeated the club in, a short match. They defended their SmackDown Tag Team Championships, as everyone thought they would. I didn't give it a grade. It was a pre-show match. It was sure. It was fine. At least it was on the show. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt and the B team didn't even occur. So that's obviously going to happen. I mean, I guess it was never announced. So it's just going to happen at a later date. Don't panic. Why are you panicking? I'm not. I'm a little bit startled. So we kicked off the show properly with Daniel Bryan versus Big Colin Cassidy. And you know what? To be honest, right, this was the best Big Cass and Daniel Bryan match so far, and one of the better Big Cass singles matches of his career. But that's not, that's not saying too much. It was still all right. I was watching it, right, to be honest, I wasn't too impressed. I saw Big Cass getting his leg hammered by Daniel Bryan, and he wasn't selling it enough, in my opinion. He was kind of going, oh, and then he would forget about it, and then, oh, and then it wasn't for me. I was watching it and getting a bit like, come on, finish the match, like, come on. I checked my phone, and on Twitter, everyone was going like, this is all right, this is decent. So then I sort of refocused, watched it a bit more intently, and either I just had a change of heart because of other people's opinions making me realise, or if it was just because, it was towards the end of the match and everything started to pick up a little bit. I think it was a mixture of the two. It was all right. Towards the end, it was okay, but I certainly wouldn't call it a hot opener by any stretch of the imagination. And compared to some of the other stuff we saw later on in the show, it wasn't anything special. For the fact that, a Daniel Bryan win is always a feel-good way to start a pay-per-view, and for the fact that it was all right and, it sort of was an okay match, I'm going to give it a B-. It's not good enough to be a B or a B+, or certainly not in the A bracket, but it was okay. B+, I think, is fair, and hopefully both men can move on to things that suit them far better. Next up, and this is where we started to realise that the show was a little bit like a New Japan show, where they get all the lesser matches out of the way first and it builds to a big old crescendo, because straight away we got Bobby Lashley versus Sami Zayn, another of those less fancied matches on the card, I guess. I certainly wasn't looking forward to it because I knew it was going to happen, and everyone, I think, you probably knew it was going to happen as well, and it did. Lashley destroyed Sami Zayn. Zayn got a tiny bit of offense in, but then for the final few minutes of the match, it was all Lashley. He defeated Zayn after several vertical suplexes, the baddest move in all of wrestling. The crowd were on their feet for how sick it was. No, they weren't. They chanted one more time and stuff because everyone wanted to see Lashley do another one of his big delayed vertical suplexes. But when he finally rolled over and made the pinfall, I was like, wow, Sami's really selling that well. It looks like he's not going to kick out. Oh, he didn't kick out at all. I don't know what to give it. I mean, I want to give it an F, to be honest, just because the feud on the whole has been so bad, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it, either a D- or an E+. A D-, you know what, an E+, just because. No, a D-. Hopefully this feud's over. And it wasn't as bad as the feud has been, but it was still pretty shoddy. I just want Sami to move on to bigger and better things. I want him to have something to get his teeth into, because truly, he's one of the most underutilized guys, not just on Raw, but I think in the whole of WWE. And I'm so glad to see the back of this feud, unless they come out on Raw and just reignite it again. I desperately hope not. Next up, Seth Rollins versus Elias for the Intercontinental Championship. Another one of those matches that no one was too excited to see, but then we all got caught out because we forgot, didn't we, that Seth Rollins is a bloody magnificent specimen. This was easily the best match so far. It really picked up towards the end. It became genuinely quite thrilling at parts. They were big, kind of false finishes, big kickouts, especially from a monstrous elbow from the top rope by Elias. He was very over in Chicago, as his pre-match promo indicated. He called all of the Chicago natives scumbags, so the crowd chanted, "We are scumbags." Of course they did. It was quite funny. The match was good. It was probably Elias' best match that I've ever seen, and it just goes to show that Rollins can have a good match with anyone. I don't care who you are. You can have a good match with obviously guys like Balor, Miz, Elias, Gilbert, Bull Buchanan, Kimchi. Now we saw that same old story in Rollins matches, which can get a tiny little bit frustrating. The whole, he's jammed his knee, is he going to win? And then he always wins regardless. But I can't knock it too much. It was still a very, very good match. and much better than I thought it was going to be, despite all evidence pointing to the fact that it would be a good match because Rollins can drag a good match out of anyone. I'm going to give it an A-. I really enjoyed it, and I originally had this down as an A, but then I sort of changed my mind a little bit just because some other things on the show eclipsed it. But they weren't A+, if you see what I mean. They were A's, so I gave this one an A- to represent that it was just a little bit lower. I hope you think that's fair. I think it is fair. I think it was an A- of a match. I think so. Next up, the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which was absolutely miles better than last year's Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. This should have been, as many people on Twitter were suggesting, this should have been what the first Women's Money in the Bank ladder match should have been. This was excellent stuff. I really enjoyed it. At the same time, I absolutely hated it and got my heart horribly broken. I'd picked Becky Lynch for this match. I feel like she doesn't get what she deserves. She's a fantastic wrestler and just a brilliant woman. And she had it won, guys. She had the match won. I will say about the match itself, right? This was less of what we think of as a Money in the Bank ladder match and more of a ladder match in terms of it was a fight featuring ladders. There weren't too many high spots, but that doesn't necessarily make it weak, as the This Is Awesome chants proved midway through. There were one or two sort of high spots. At one point, Sasha Banks got tipped off the ladder, but turned into a nice meteora on two of her opponents. That was really good. Then Naomi got up, and it looked like she was going to win, and Becky stopped her in the nick of time, and I was like, yes, Becky's going to win. She's going to actually win this match. And then the one little problem that I had with the match was that Becky unclipped the briefcase and then had to wait because Alexa Bliss was a little bit late to her spot. I don't know whose fault it was. I don't know if Becky was too early or Alexa was too late, but either way, it was a little bit awkward. Becky had the briefcase unclipped, she had the match essentially won, and then Alexa had to come along and spoil her party. And then Alexa Bliss, not one of the favourites I don't think, won the Women's Money in the Bank briefcase, which, you know, kind of solidifies, I guess, what we already sort of knew, in that she is really one of WWE's guys, one of the people who they really trust with, you know, holding the key positions, the belts and the briefcases and that sort of thing. And you know what, I don't have any qualms with that. I think she's a very charismatic woman, she's fantastic. But at the same time, I just don't want Becky to get lost in the shuffle. The crowd were very hot for Becky in this match. They really wanted her to win. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. I genuinely think that everyone was on Team Becky. Justice for Becky. Hashtag justice for Becky. She was robbed. A- though, really good stuff. Let down a little bit by that dodgy finish with the unclipping of the briefcase, but I think it was still very, very good. A-. Next up, Jinder Mahal versus Roman Reigns. If I was looking at this match in a vacuum, if it just took place in an empty gym, like at the end of Rocky 3, then I'd be like, oh, it's a C or a C-. It's that sort of match. It's a perfectly average down the middle match. But what ruined this was the crowd reaction. But I can totally see why the crowd were annoyed. Obviously, this was a feud that not really anybody wanted to see, so they just crapped all over it. The Chicago crowd, obviously very smarky. Of course, there were CM Punk chants, but there were chants for just like anyone. There were NXT chants, Velveteen Dream chants, Sami Zayn chants of ole, 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 ole. Just anyone a little bit internety, anyone a little bit popular with the smarky crowd was getting a chant. It was a little bit like the Raw after WrestleMania kind of atmosphere, and not in a good way. Roman picked up the victory in a little bit of a unique way, I guess, but at the same time in a totally predictable way. Sunil Singh was wheelchair bound at the side of the ring, and that was pretty funny. He was clearly feigning injury. At one point he popped up out of his chair and pushed Roman Reigns into the ring post, so that was kind of good heelish comedy, but then at the same time it led to the finish that we all kind of saw coming. Basically, he tried it again, Reigns turned around, just punched him, did a big spear, and then rolled back in the ring. Jinder went for the collapse, missed it, spear, 1, 2, 3. Roman's the winner. Yeah, come on. He's the champion. Well, he's not the champion, but he may well be in the near future. It was okay. As I say, if this match was just in a vacuum, be probably a C-, a C. But because of the crowd reaction and the real frustration and the way this sort of ground the momentum of the pay-per-view to a halt, I'm going to give it a D- actually. It's going to go down a whole grade just because of the negative atmosphere surrounding it. Not the fault, of the guys in the ring, but life's not fair, I'm afraid. D-. Next up, Carmella versus Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Now this is a fine example of an average match. Again, a match that was probably the same sort of quality as Roman versus Jinder, if not a little bit worse, really helped by the crowd. Essentially what happened was, and if you've glanced at any form of social media by now, you'll know what happened. James Ellsworth came back, the big hog, James Hogsworth, Snoop Hoggy Hog, who let the hogs out. The action itself was kind of lackluster. I mean, there was a lot of Carmella getting heat on Asuka, which is what nobody really wanted to see in an Asuka match. They want to see Asuka kick ass and dominate. So in that sense, I think it was kind of put together kind of wrong by the road agents. But at the same time, you know, that ending just got one of the biggest pops of the night. Essentially, the way that Ellsworth made his appearance was that this weird creature dressed as Asuka floated onto the ring apron when Asuka looked to have the match won, and then obviously distracted Asuka enough that Carmella was able to hit the big kick, and it was Ellsworth, and he did a wink. But despite him being told to do one thing, they were like, "What you got to do, Ellsworth, is when you reveal the mask, you've got to do a wink," and he couldn't do a wink. I can't really. I can kind of do it. It's not a smooth wink, but I can kind of do it without shutting that eye. I can kind of wink. He can't. He was one of the guys who, you know, he did the whole like, he just did a big old blink, and then they showed it again in slow motion. Very funny, very Ellsworth. The pop was huge for him as well. And Carmella is still the SmackDown Women's Champion. I don't know what to give this. I'm really struggling because at first, because of the big feel-good Ellsworth moment and stuff, I was going to give it a grade in the B bracket. But the more I think about it, the more I don't like the booking, really. The more that Asuka just becomes just another superstar on the roster, the more I hate it. Because she was something really special in NXT, and up until she lost to Charlotte at WrestleMania, she was again something really special, and now she's not. So it's between a B- and a C+. Oh, I found it a little bit of a chore to get through until Ellsworth appeared, so I'm going to give it a C+. I hope that doesn't sound too harsh. No, bloody hell, you know what, Sam? I've changed my mind. I'm going to give it a B- just because the Ellsworth thing was fun. And wrestling's all about fun, isn't it? Sorry for mixing up your graphics there. I'm really sorry, I won't do it again. B-, bloody B- for Jimmy Ellsworth. Next up, the WWE Championship match between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura in a last man standing match. This was long and grueling and slow paced, but at the same time, really good. I don't know how it really worked. It was one of the... I don't really normally like big, overly drawn-out matches, and often I find myself thinking as well, when a last man standing stipulation is announced, I'm like, oh, a last man standing match, excellent, there's going to be some sick action here, bros. Then it starts, and they knock each other down, and they're down for 3 seconds here, down for 5 seconds there, and I'm like, oh, last man standing matches aren't actually that good, are they? But after a while, this match really grew into itself, and it was one of the better last man standing matches I can remember seeing. It's up there with Owens versus Ambrose at the Royal Rumble 2016, maybe even a little bit better than that match, actually. It really, by the end, was really grabbing everyone's attention. So the story from the sort of early to mid stages was that AJ was very resilient. He went for the Styles Clash at one point, Nakamura went for the low blow, but he stepped back, he had the move scouted, but Nakamura continued to press the advantage as the more natural striker. He had a big running Kinshasa over the announce tables, Styles was knocked loopy, managed to get back to his feet at 9, sort of bouncing on the announce table. Then Nakamura carted him through a table in the corner. Again, Styles managed to get back to his feet just. It was really good drama. Then Styles hit a Styles Clash off the steps, and Nakamura managed to get to his feet. And it was like, when's this going to end? And then Styles just booted him in the testicles. It was hilarious and good. Showed that Styles is like a winner. He'll do whatever it takes to win. He's finally had enough. Big phenomenal forearm through the announce table. Wonderful stuff. Styles retained the belt. The only qualm I have is what's next for Shinsuke Nakamura. I wanted him to win the title, but it's not the end of the road for him. If they come up with something better, maybe he'll go to Raw, maybe he'll win like the mid-card belt, one of the mid-card belts on either brand, I don't know. But I wasn't too disheartened. I think, yes, I would have preferred him to win, but I still like this. I think it's a good trade-off to make Styles look even stronger. I don't mind too much that Nakamura was sacrificed. I know there'll be a lot of people out there, though, who disagree, especially the editor of this very video, who's probably very cross right now. But I'm going to give it an A. I thought it was good. I did like this match. It was violent and slow, but very fun at the same time. Next up, the Raw Women's Championship match between Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey, who, by the way, didn't you know, used to be in the UFC and may not know the rules of professional wrestling, because various things happen in wrestling matches that aren't allowed in mixed martial arts, like headbutts, and there's no round system, and power bombs and stuff. Although I've seen power bombs happen in MMA before, but at the same time, commentary was very weird for this match, constantly pushing this idea that Rousey may not know the rules of wrestling, which I found very strange, especially considering that we all know that Rousey's been a lifelong fan of wrestling. At the same time, it kind of worked in the sense that Rousey proved them wrong. She proved the commentators wrong by continuing to be an absolute natural. I love watching her wrestle because I really wanted to do well, and then she does. She nearly fell off the top rope at one point when she went for a big crossbody, but she regained her balance, very dramatic. Jumped off, huge crossbody, I loved it. Big judo throw on the much larger Nia Jax, and by this point I was like, oh my god, she's going to win. And then things started to go down. Bit Game of Thrones, bit twists and turns all over the place. So thanks to clever camera work, we never saw what happened before the live crowd did, but suddenly we cut to a wide shot and Alexa Bliss was in the ring with her Women's Money in the Bank contract. She bashed Ronda Rousey with a briefcase, which meant that Ronda won the match by DQ, but didn't really win. Then she continued to assault Nia, hitting her bad arm that had been weakened throughout the match, and then, oh my word, she won the Raw Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss is once again the champion. Oh, A-. I thought at first that this was going to be maybe a bit of a weak match just because I underestimated Ronda again. I don't know why. She's really, really good. Alexa's cash-in was high drama, loved it. Set up a lot of stuff, set up the ongoing Nia and Alexa feud, set up a potential Ronda and Alexa match, loved it. Yes, they've totally redeemed themselves because I didn't agree with Ronda getting the title shot, but they've totally turned it around. A-, wasn't the best match on the card, but loved the booking. And finally, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, the main event of the evening. My pick, Kevin Owens, got absolutely murdered at this point. Owens' role in the match was the ringleader, trying to get everyone together to stop Braun Strowman from winning. He led the charge at the start of the match when they all buried him under ladders. Then when Strowman came back later on, Owens tried to lead the charge again and got carted off a monstrously tall ladder through the production table at the side of the stage, and I was so devastated and worried as well. I hope he's okay because it was a big fall. The match was all action. I loved it. There were stories being told all over the place. At one point, Strowman ran through the middle of a ladder that two people were carrying towards him, which is genius. The Miz was at his sneaky, devilish best. Kofi brought the athleticism. He was revealed at the start, by the way, as the member of the New Day because Xavier looked like it was going to be him. Ripped off his shirt and it said Kofi on his torso, which is brilliant. I really loved the match. And then, to the surprise of many, I think we'd all kind of thought it was too obvious that Braun Strowman was going to win, but he actually won. So I didn't see that coming, but it's pretty interesting. I would put money on him being Universal Champion by the end of the summer, maybe even. I'm going to give this match an A. The ending came a little bit abruptly for me, but at the same time, everything else in the match was absolutely spot on. I loved it. Balor was also fantastic. I forgot to mention him, but he did a massive coup de grace off a ladder on the outside, over the top rope into the ring. That was lovely stuff. So many good spots. I can't really remember too many, but yes, it was exciting from start to finish, and I've got no complaints. But the winner surprised me a little bit, but I've got no complaints. So overall, I'm going to give the show an A-. Money in the Bank 2018 gets an A-. You might have noticed that I said a lot of nice things about a lot of the matches and I gave a few A's, but at the same time, it was dragged down by the slightly weaker opening to the show. I'm talking about Big Cass, and I'm talking especially about Sami Zayn versus Bobby Lashley. Oh, and Roman versus Jinder as well. But good stuff. Seth Rollins versus Elias was excellent. Both Money in the Bank ladder matches were brilliant. I preferred the men's slightly, but the women's one was excellent too. Also, the cash-in was really dramatic from Alexa Bliss. And AJ versus Nakamura was excellent too. And James Ellsworth came back. What more could you want? What a show. But not all the way through good, but big flashes of brilliance here and there. And I think that equates to an A-. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. Follow all of us at Cultaholic. And if you want to, you can check out our Patreon as well. Just drop my notes. You can check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget to join us.